I find myself all the time when someone says, I need help with this. I'm like, well, I don't really know this, but I know this other person just finished this or did it and they're struggling to do the same thing. You guys should connect. And I have connected different people over the years in a lot of like facets of my life. And I think it's just part of my personality.
That was Julie Deily, and this is episode 88 of the Chopped Podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Marley of the blog Namely Marley. I am your host, and this is the Chopped Podcast. You know, this is the podcast designed for people just like you, bloggers who love food. So what are we doing here? Well, each week my goal is to share with you thoughts, stories, interviews, everything related to food blogging so we can all learn together about what works with food blogging and maybe even a little bit about what doesn't. Today, I'm sharing with you my interview with Julie Deily. She's of the site The Little Kitchen, and we are talking about becoming a connector. Okay, so I know there was a lot in that statement, so let me kind of break it down. First of all, Julie, she's amazing. I know you've heard of her before. She used to be the go-to person who set up all the food blog forum conferences. She was also one of the forces behind the great Food Blogger Cookie Swap. Did you participate in those or hear about those? They're pretty cool, and a lot of bloggers were involved with them. Anyway, it was a great way for bloggers to connect with each other and discover other bloggers. And Julie's just all that and more. She's all about helping people get connected, and that's pretty amazing. So next, you might be also wondering, what is this whole connector thing? Is it another SEO terminology? No, it's actually much better than that. I first heard about the term being a connector from Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point. It's really interesting because when I reached out to Julie for the interview and then we started talking, she had actually just read an article about the concept of being a connector. So I thought that was really kind of cool. But anyway, actually, Malcolm calls out 3 personality types in his book: the connector, the mavens, and the salespeople. The connector is the person who makes change happen through people. You might also be a connector if you find yourself connecting people, if you refer one person to another because you know about their expertise and, you're kind of solving problems through people and connecting them. You may also find that you love networking or your ideas focus on people in general. I think being a connector as a food blogger, or at least knowing one, is important because, it's a central core to the way we work. Connecting people with each other through food and recipes. Do you see how that kind of works? So being a connector with our audience, being a connector with other food bloggers, it all is kind of related. I know you're going to love it. I can't wait to share it with you. But first, a quick word about the Chopped Conference. Talk about connecting. Chopped Conference is a great place to get your networking skills engaged. There's going to be amazing speakers, of course, and fun folks to hang out with. I am so excited to announce that Stonyfield is one of the partner sponsors for Chopped Conference this year. This is an intimate blogging conference. It's not one of those huge conferences where you feel overwhelmed. We'll have around 100 people, so you'll have opportunities to talk with the sponsor representatives in a relaxed, fun environment. So come join me and so many more wonderful people at Chopped Conference this year. Head to choppedcon.com today and click on register. I can't wait to see you there. Okay, let's get right to today's feature interview with Julie. So everyone, put on those earbuds, turn up the volume, and let's talk about all things food blogging and so much more. Hey everyone, I'm happy to have Julie Deily of the site The Little Kitchen on the show today. Hey Julie, welcome to the Chop Podcast.
Hey Marley, thank you so much for having me.
Well, I am so glad to have you. First of all, I just love you. And second, I'm just so glad to be talking about the topic that we have on the agenda today, which is about how we can harness the power of being a connector between the people that we work with. And I just think that's going to be a great topic. I can't wait to talk with you about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I love you too. We were just catching up earlier and talking about how long we've known each other. It's been awesome.
I know. I don't remember where I met you at. I believe, it was a previous conference, and I just immediately was drawn to you. I think you have such a spirit of helpfulness, and that really just comes through. And I love that about you. So,
well, thank you for saying that. Just because that's actually something that I love doing. Is what I found is I love helping other people.
That's really wonderful. So we're going to talk about this power of being a connector, which clearly, people can probably already tell just from listening to you that you're got a natural skill for this. But I think it might help everybody if you could first start out with a little bit about you, particularly like what it is that caused you to start your food blog.
Yeah, I actually started my blog in December 2009, and we can rewind a little bit because I had been talking about starting a food blog for about 6 or 7 months. Actually, would email my sister, who is actually my baby sister, and she was in college at the time, and I was working as a software engineer. And I would tell her, I would send her links to other blogs, especially someone I became friends with later on after I started my blog, Jen from Beantown Baker. And I would say, look at this recipe. I really want to start a blog. And, after so many months of saying that to her, I think she finally got sick of it. And she was like, why don't you just start it? And I wrote her back and I said, well, I think I need to buy a good camera first, and then I'll start my blog. And she literally, because I had a point and shoot camera at the time, she literally wrote me back and said, you need to just get off your ass and stop talking about it, and you need to just do it. And I think I still have the email because I was able to go back and figure out later on that it was 6 months of me talking about it.
Oh, wow.
And when your baby sister who's in college and you're working and you're paying bills tells you to get off your ass, like, you get off your ass and you do it. And I literally started my food blog, The Little Kitchen, like 48 hours later.
Wow. That's like the power of I don't know, what is it, the right word, the kind of, like in your face kind of talk between sisters is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
They can motivate us like nobody else can, I think.
Exactly. I
agree.
So
did you always have an interest in cooking, or was that just, you just liked these recipes? What was that about?
So I would cook for my family all the time. We'd have like dinners and holiday parties, and I would bring food into work. And I just loved cooking, and people were always asking me for the recipes. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start the food blog, because people were asking me for the same recipes over and over again. I would send it to them and I'd say, okay, here's the link, and this is what I changed, or here's my mom's recipe. And it literally, like 6 months later, someone would ask me for the same recipe again. I mean, I think this was even back when you couldn't really search your email very well.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I'm going to start a blog, and I can just put all the recipes there,
Again, that spirit of helpfulness, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes. And so what about the food photography skills? I mean, you mentioned that you wanted to get a better camera. Was that kind of a progression for you?
Yeah, I mean, I shot with my point and shoot camera for a while, and it's so funny because the first post that I ever put up, I used flash in my kitchen under fluorescent lights, and it was a picture of cupcakes, and I literally was so proud of that picture. I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread.
Yes.
And come to find out years later, it was a horrible picture. It was terrible. It was embarrassing. I mean, I loved it so much that it was my Twitter avatar for a long time.
Yeah.
And actually, I guess it's kind of good when no one tells you like how bad it was, because if people did like diss on me and like leave comments and saying, "Oh, these pictures are terrible," I probably, I don't know, like I don't know if it would have kept going. But
you think it might have impacted you?
Maybe not, because I guess I'm one of those people too that when someone says you can't do that, then I'm going to go do it.
Yeah.
So. And I think it just really depends on your personality, I guess. But yeah. I literally, I think maybe after 6 months, I finally did buy the camera that I wanted. And what I did was I literally said, what if I don't like this? And what if I don't want to learn this camera? Or what if I hate this camera? Or what if I hate food blogging? So I literally I bought the cheapest DSLR that I could find. And I decided I wanted to do Canon because I shot with 35 millimeter Canon in college. And so that's the only reason why I picked Canon. And that's what I tell people all the time now, like just to buy the cheapest camera you can get and then see if you like it, then you can upgrade. And now I have a very expensive camera compared to what it was before, but that's because I decided to upgrade, and I did keep on with it. So. And
it was a progression it sounds like,
definitely.
Each level deserves a better camera. But, I like what you were talking about. And I think that's something that's worth, a minute to discuss is like that raw passion that we have when we first start. And somehow I feel like it's easy to lose that over the years. And I don't know how to tap back into that sometimes. It's hard.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I think about all the time is when I worked a full-time job, I also volunteered for a nonprofit organization,
Oh,
and I
okay.
helped organize a food blog conference. And I also kept up with my blog, and kind of figuring out like, how did I do all of that? Because I don't feel like I do as much now that I blog full time. It's going to be 4 years now. Like 4 years I've been blogging full time and been a freelancer full time, because
Oh,
four
that's
years
so
ago I
cool.
got laid off from my
Congratulations.
job. Thank you so much. Um, and one of the things that I do try to remind myself, and I try to get my friends to too, when when you're frustrated or when you are challenged, because I do feel like running your own business is very challenging. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely love it, and I wouldn't trade it for anything, the flexibility and being able to be my own boss. But sometimes it does suck. Like sometimes it's really, really hard. Like
Yeah.
I don't like doing receipts,
Yeah.
doing the business side of certain things. And sometimes things can be really, really frustrating. But I try to go back to that obsession, passion that I did feel, or the reason why I started and what kept me motivated. Um, there was a time when I worked um, as a software engineer, and I was really frustrated in my job. And I was frustrated with where the company and the management was heading and what the direction they were going in. And I literally just poured my heart and soul into my blog and my volunteer work.
Yeah.
And I always say that my blog is what saved me, because I feel like a lot of people are in jobs that they're not very happy
Right. Yeah.
in. And to think about those times when I was really frustrated and, could have gotten depressed over my job.
Yeah.
But I had my food blog. And so I have my food blog today. And so I try to remind myself of those kinds of things all the time.
And the cool thing is you get to chart the path, right? I mean, you get to decide how are we going to do this on the little kitchen.
Exactly. Exactly. I
Yeah,
get to
that's
decide, and I get to decide every day what I'm going to work on. And I always say we, because I just do. I don't know why, but what we're going to work on and what we're going to do, and exactly what course we're going to go on. Are we going to turn right or left today? And sometimes if I don't want to do this and I want to do something else, like I've actually been thinking about taking on volunteer work again, and doing other things that I'm passionate about also. For sure. Because, one of the things that I've told other people, and I tell my husband, and I drive him nuts a little bit, because I said, when I was working, my food blog was my hobby, and now my work is my food blog. I think I need a
yeah.
hobby. And he's like, you don't have time for a hobby. You don't have time for a hobby. But I think it's true.
Yes.
You need something from your something. I think
Right.
like I'm being very, I don't know if I'm not finding the right words, but I think you know what you're talking. You know
Oh
what I'm
no, I am
talking about.
totally going to quote you on that. I love it. You need something for your something. That's good. I get you too. The thing is, food
Because I
blogging
feel like
is,
you become so obsessed with it. And like
yes.
my friends, I see them online, and one of the things we talked about earlier, but like I see them complain about something or talk about something, and it's like, it's not, first of all, if someone else who's a non-food blogger read what you just wrote, they would think, oh my God, what is this person talking about? And
Yes.
why do I care?
Right.
And then the other thing is, it's like you become so obsessed with it. It's like there's more to life than our jobs, and that's
Right.
what I'm learning, like all the time. Like there's so much more. Like, and I have gained a totally different perspective, because this year in 2016 I got really sick and I ended up in the hospital, and I
Mm.
couldn't even work for like 2 months. And so it's you have to like really think about what's really important and
Oh,
what really matters to you.
that's true. And it's nice that you had the flexibility of, your own business to work around that.
Definitely, definitely, for sure. Like it was definitely stressful, and I had some deadlines, but luckily and fortunately, a lot of people are very understanding when they know you're sick, and they're like, it's okay, don't worry about it. We just want you to get better, and then so I had a couple of clients that I worked with that were really, really nice and very understanding, which was great because, you feel really bad. And it's funny, like I got really frustrated with myself. And it's like, if it was my mom or my friend or my husband, I would say, you need to rest. Don't worry about that stuff.
Yes.
But for myself, you don't let yourself
we can be really hard on
or
ourselves, don't you think?
We definitely can. I definitely think that. Yeah, for sure.
Well, I like what you were going with on that obsession part because did you ever watch that movie, Under the Tuscan Sun?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
should I put it on my list?
It's such a good movie. I like owned it and watched it so many times. It's not even funny. But there's a scene in there where she's wanting to be in a relationship. It's kind of a classic chick flick kind of storyline. But the character that is talking to her, giving her some advice, says, when you're looking for ladybugs, what you need to do is just go lay down in the field. You don't go chasing off after ladybugs because they're never around that way. Go lay down in the field and they'll come to you. And that's exactly what happened. It was kind of a cute storyline. But I do think there's some truth to that. Like if we're constantly pursuing the next goal with food blogging or the next this, and we're just obsessed with it, I just feel like, there's got to be a break from all that.
Definitely, for sure. And one of the things that I found is that if you constantly are focused on certain things, one or two things, and you're just obsessed with it, you might miss out on other possibilities, other relationships, other connections that you never knew that could happen, and you might have totally missed out.
What a perfect segue to our topic, Julie. I think you might need to be a podcast host.
No, I'm like the famous for on tangents, so I couldn't do it. But like, I have a good story for you. One of my best friends, her name is Joanne from 15 Spatulas, and I met her at one of the conferences that I used to help organize, Food Blog Forum. And one day she just sent me an email, and she was asking me, she said, I'd love your advice. And it was working with a brand, and I think it had something to do with video. And it was just literally like, maybe she thought, maybe I'll just email her and maybe she has some thoughts or whatever. Yeah. And something clicked with me in that email. And I said, hey, I am running errands. Can you email me back your phone number and I'm going to call you? And I think I talked to her for like an hour and a half on the phone. Oh, wow. And we have been good friends ever since. Oh, and so cool. literally, like, she's come and visited me and stayed with me, and we've cooked together. We have been involved in a couple of campaigns together. So, we work with this one brand that I've worked with for almost like 4 years, and they brought her on board after a while. And it's just been really, really neat. And we talk about it often, about how, what if I didn't respond to that email? And I'm going to get choked up. What if she didn't send me that email?
Yeah.
The possibility of the friendship that we have would never, she said to me, and I feel the same way, like there would be this hole in my heart that I wouldn't even know that I was missing. And I feel like we should reach out more, and we should also let more people in more often.
Oh, I feel like you're speaking to me because I can be kind of an independent soul sometimes, and I don't mean to be that way. It's just kind of in my DNA, I think, sometimes. And so for me to reach out is not always easy. And I think that's such a good message that food bloggers really should be doing this more. We should be reaching out and connecting with others more.
Yes, and I did it a lot early on. I felt like when I first started, I don't know if you feel the same way, but 6-7 years ago, a lot of us were on Twitter a lot, and we were chatting each other up a lot. There was, that's where I made a lot of my friends, is on Twitter. And I don't know if there's a lot of people, we're still on Twitter, but it's just not, it's different. It's a different environment, right? Yeah. And I guess there's a lot of Facebook groups now. And I think that what I do, and I try to do sometimes, is when I see someone floundering, or if they're asking a question and not really getting it answered, sometimes I'll actually reach out to them privately via email or through private message, and I'll be like, hey, this is what works for me, or feeling like we could have a better conversation if it was private,
Yes.
semi-private,
Yes.
and not coming in with an ulterior motive ever, but just never knowing what the possibility could come out of it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
there's one blogger that I've done this with a couple of times where I've seen her message or whatever, and then I noticed something on her blog that seemed kind of broken, and then I sent it to her, and then she's actually given me some suggestions. So it
Oh,
wasn't like,
yeah.
so it's really interesting how you never know what you're going to get when you give, and never giving with an expectation or intention of getting something back.
Right.
And I'm saying that out loud, and I have to remind myself all the time, because sometimes we feel like we're hurt if someone doesn't reciprocate or whatever, and it's
Yes.
about giving and not with an expectation of receiving something back, for sure.
I think that's so true. And so I was wondering if you could tell everybody the description. I actually think of two projects that I feel like you were such you really collaborated with these projects. And then I think in turn that it helped you be what I think we're describing as a connector. But now that I say that, let me just first do a really quick definition of the connector, because we were both earlier talking about the book by Malcolm Gladwell. I think it's The Tipping Point, where he talks about the different kinds of people, and one of them is the connector. And they're the kind of people, maybe you actually read an article on it. Do you want to talk about what that is?
Yeah. Yeah, it was funny because I am on LinkedIn, and I don't always read these emails, but every so often they send out a newsletter with different articles that people have posted on LinkedIn. And one thing just popped out at me. The article is called Forget Networking, How to Be a Connector. And it really like it had my eyes wide open, and I read it and I was so excited. I remember sharing it on Twitter, and I felt like, am I this person? I think I already do this kind of thing. But I didn't say that. I said, this is a great article. People should read this. And a few people tweeted me back saying, this is what you are. You are
Wow.
this person. And it made me really think and realize that, like, how much, and I feel like I'm talking about myself too much, but how much I really enjoy like connecting other people with other people. um I find myself all the time when someone says, I need help with this, I'm like, well, I don't really know this, but I know this other person just finished this or did it, and they're struggling to do the same thing. You guys should connect. And I have connected different people over the years, not even just in food blogging, but in my life, in work, in volunteering, in a lot of like facets of my life. And I think it's just part of my personality. I don't think either of my parents were connectors, but it's just something that I've always done.
I think it's very appropriate for someone who's a software engineer, because it's like I can just see this database in your mind. You're keeping track of who does what and who needs what and putting them together.
it's it's so funny because I'm very much an extrovert, like 97%
Oh my.
extrovert.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and then we're talking about the Myers-Briggs, like,
Yes.
which I think is like something that everyone should take that test so that you
Yes.
can kind of know, and then make sure your spouse or significant other takes it so then you can kind of understand. My husband is like 90% introvert. So a
Oh
lot of
my
times I'm
goodness.
like, I don't understand what's going on here because I see it my way, and I
Yes.
feel like I'm definitely the anti-software engineer because a lot of software engineers that I worked with were not very like outgoing,
Uh-huh.
and being not able to communicate and stuff. So yeah, I see it, but then I don't see it too.
Does your husband work from home too?
No, he works in an office, and I think he
Okay.
likes it that way. I
Oh.
would drive him crazy all day, every day if we worked together.
So how do you handle working from home being an extrovert? Do you like go to coffee shops, or do you feel lonely sometimes?
Oh, definitely. Like I feel the first like couple of years working, doing food blogging full time. I think I like after 2 years I hit this like, what's going on? I'm like not happy about something. Like, it's not necessarily depression, but you're like, I'm in a funk. I know that
Yeah.
something's up. And I realized that, I don't know, you're just trying to do this and you're focusing, and you're not really paying attention to like what you need, what your like emotional health needs and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And that's when I realized, yeah, I do need other people. And so I love to travel. I travel a lot, and I go to events, and I try to see other food blogger friends, and
Yes.
also keep in touch with my friends who I used to work with, friends who also are not food bloggers.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like it's so important to have friends that have nothing to do with your work or your current work, too.
Oh, that's
Um,
great advice.
it's so important. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we were talking about this topic of connectors, and I feel like you are so good at this, but one of the things I think that kind of helped fuel that for you is that you collaborated with other people who were doing things. And so the one thing I can think of is that you helped organize food blog forums. So could you talk a little bit about what you did to, help those events happen?
Yeah, I actually was um, naturally, part of my personality, always loved to organize events. And years ago, I found out that I was actually named after Julie McCoy,
Get
um,
out.
yeah,
That's too
the
funny.
cruise director. Is that her title? Cruise director on the Love Boat.
Yes, let's go with
Who's
that.
basically, yeah. Before I started my food blog, actually organized events for my company. Like
Ah,
I wasn't paid to do it; it was a volunteer position. I helped organize the holiday parties. We had a children's Christmas party that I organized, and we had Santa come, and the baby showers, all those little things. I did the blood drives for my company, and that was all like something that I just loved doing.
yeah.
And it was a long time ago. I actually emailed Jaden from Steamy Kitchen saying, I would love to have a conference in Florida and I could help organize it. And I was like, I think in the beginning she was like, who's this crazy person emailing me? Because I kept emailing her and said, hey, I organized my 10-year high school reunion and I know how to organize events. And so that was one of the things that I loved doing. I loved organizing and getting food bloggers together. And it was really fun. I helped organize 5 different food blog forum events. And
Wow.
then with one of my best friends, Lindsay from Love and Olive Oil,
Yes.
we did the food blogger cookie swap for 4 years. So it was one of those things of, and I don't think that everyone should just go out and organize an event. I think that you really need to figure out what you really enjoy and I mean, besides food blogging, if you're a food blogger or blogging in general, what is it the other thing that like kind of like makes you just like smile and wake up and
Light
get up
up.
and say, I
Yeah.
want to do this?
Yeah.
And it was I just kind of fell into it. And like, and it's one of those things where, I'm 36 years old now, and it's really looking back and reflecting on your life. But I think that if I really looked at the Myers-Briggs, and there's another book called Strength Finder that my old boss made us take the test,
Yes, I've heard of that
and
one.
it's a really good one. You should definitely, if you haven't taken the test, you have to buy the book so that you can have access to the test online.
Okay.
And he bought the book for everyone in our office, and it was like a couple hundred people, and made us take it. And there was you get 5 different strengths, and you find out kind of like where your strengths are. One of the things that I like to talk about all the time and think about is um, when we're kids and we're in school, they always try to say, what's your weaknesses? What are your
Yeah.
weaknesses? Well, we need to make sure that those are not your weaknesses anymore. And I
Oh,
kind of think that's bullshit. Like, I
yeah.
think that we need to figure out what your strength is and why make
Yes.
people change who they are
Right.
and play to their strengths. Just play to your strengths. And so, one of those 5 things that I am is, 2 of them. One's a learner, and I figured out, and I knew that before that. Like, I'm obsessed with like reading and learning stuff. Like, I have a voracious appetite for learning. Like, I want to know so much.
Yeah.
And the other one is a woo. And there was only 2 people in the office that had woo.
What?
And it was
Woo as
funny
in
because
woo.
it was my woo, as in like the person who can like talk to anyone, meet anybody, everyone gravitates to them in the room, and they're also like a connector also.
Okay.
Um,
I love it.
they're really positive. Yeah. And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, well, if I had known some of the things about myself or really had been really reflective, and I don't know if you don't get reflective until you're older. I'm not sure
Right.
what it is, but really knowing what I really like to do and what I want to do and
Oh,
really focusing on those instead of trying to be oh, this food blogger is doing great things and she's doing all these awesome things and she's so successful and look exactly everything she's doing and I'm going to try to be her.
Right.
And no, you really should look within yourself and see what is your strength. What are you good at and what can you share with other people, you know?
Yes.
And
I think that makes such great sense.
Doesn't it? But it didn't make sense till it made sense to me. And like, I don't know, like, I feel like I sound like I'm trying to sell you something right now, but like, I really, really feel like once I figured out that I really love learning and helping other people, teaching, connecting people, and one of the other things of my like strength, and I hope you take it and like, I hope we maybe share in the show notes, like a link to the book. The other one of my 5 things is positivity and like being really positive. And it was like when these things came out, it was like, oh my God, this is totally me. This is so right.
Yes.
You know?
What's your Myers-Briggs number or letters?
I got an ENFP.
Oh, I'm right there on the line between ENFJ and ENFP, so I'm right there with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. That's cool. I agree.
Cool. Are you one or more the other, or are you kind of just in the middle?
I think I am kind of in the middle. I mean, J is kind of a weird one. I mean, J stands for judgment or judge, right? Is that right? Yeah, and I am not an overly judgmental person, but I do think they're probably doing it in a different context besides, whether you judge people. It's really more about like how you take information in. But
I think so. I think it's more like analytical or judging is more analytical, and P is like, I think, like perception.
Yes. And so I think what has happened is like my education is an MBA. I felt like, you're really kind of forced to be analytical in those situations. And so I think like I can adapt very easily to be analytical. However, I think I'm more in line, like on a day-to-day basis with the perception side. I think I'm kind of stronger there, but I had to kind of relearn it. Let me just say it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we're kind of socialized to be, like you said that, in school, they were saying, you need to play to your, understand your strengths and or your weaknesses and make those better. But in reality, we'd be so much happier if we just played our strengths, Yeah.
And it's something that I have just really like doing a lot of reading over the last 5 years and really like thinking about it and really thinking about like if I had gone the route that my parents wanted me to, or everyone thought I should be in science and, in the medical field or whatever, I'm not sure I would be completely happy. And I really kind of sucked at chemistry and I couldn't remember all the stuff, all the biology and chemistry terms. And if I get pushing myself and going that route that my parents really wanted me to, and I thought I wanted to because they wanted me to.
Yes.
I don't think I would have been so happy, and I might have ended up this way also. And I also feel like because now I'm on my second career, I feel like it's okay to have more than one career. I might have a couple of more careers in my lifetime.
Yes.
This might not be the thing that I do for the rest of my life, and that's okay.
Right.
And not feeling like everything has to be perfect all the time. And that's, speaking of a perfectionist too, it's hard to say those words, but like everything doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't, because, life is too darn short.
Yeah, it kind of takes it back to what we were talking about earlier. Like, it's almost like you can have perfection or passion. It's like the passion that we had when we first started our blog was so intoxicating and wonderful. And then the perfectionism takes over and it's like, oh, I can only publish something unless it's perfect. And that's not as exciting, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it becomes kind of like mundane and drudgery, right?
Yes.
And I feel funny saying that, like, because it's on a podcast and it's public, but I mean, because everything's supposed to be all sunshine and roses, but it's not always sunshine and rainbows and roses and stuff all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's so true. I really feel you. In fact, I've, we've been doing these fry chats with Kara Anzus on Fridays, and she's with the site Fork and Beans. And we were just talking about this very topic about, sometimes we're asked to be brands, and yet we want to be authentic. And so as a brand, maybe somebody has chosen this platform of, this is a happy place where I blog, and yet not every day is happy. So I think it's something a lot of bloggers feel.
Yeah, and I feel like, so this is how I've kind of, I don't know, like I feel the same way. Like I don't want to be complaining, I don't want to be whiny online because I do it too much sometimes in person. I just don't want to be that person. Like sometimes the people that complain all the time, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm unfollowing them because I can't deal with this. They're complaining about nothing right now. Like
Yeah.
there's so much hurt and sadness in the world right now. And they're
Yes.
complaining about that, you
I
know?
know.
So I
Yes.
try to keep that to a minimum. And I really just share on my blog the things that I love. Like if I went to a restaurant or I went on a trip and I didn't like the hotel, well, then the hotel doesn't get mentioned. But I'll
Right.
mention all the restaurants that I like,
Yeah.
all the stuff that I love. But at the same time, over time, I have not allowed myself. I mean, I've wanted to, and I did. Like in the beginning, I would write about like this. I always talk about this example. There was this cheesesteak recipe that we worked on. Curtis and I, my husband and I, worked on for years. We just like were so obsessed with getting this recipe and getting a really good recipe. It wasn't even about for the blog. It was like, I want to make cheesesteaks at home kind of thing.
Yes.
And when I finally shared the recipe, I talked about how I was traveling for 2 weeks and Curtis was freaking out. Like all these things, like the animals were getting sick. He went to go do the laundry and the washing machine broke. And like everyone can relate to that, right? Like
Right.
the washing machine broke. He had to take these soaking wet clothes out of the washing machine and go to a laundromat. And it was like, if I was home, it would really help him out because he has a long commute and he has long days. And so he was so stressed out. Not only that, I forgot my medication at home and he had to FedEx it to me. Like there was all these things
Yeah.
that happened. And I was like, I've never traveled for 2 weeks. It was like a week of
Oh,
work and then a week for like it was a food blog conference. So I was like gone for and it was all on the West Coast. And
yes.
so I was literally just gone for 2 weeks straight.
Wow.
And I wrote about this whole like back and forth and like stress and how I totally owe it to him when I come home to make these cheesesteaks. And I did. Um, and so it's like not completely all positive, but I did share parts of our life, like when our one dog Charlie, he's about to be 13 in a couple of weeks, had so many surgeries, and it was so stressful. And I was like almost in tears when I was so stressed when he was
Mm.
about to go into surgery and stuff like that. And people like really responded to that and really said, "Oh, well, my dog had this surgery and it was fine," or "This is what happened," or giving me ideas on how to deal with it. And I felt like there was this place that I've kind of created, this community that I created, where I could talk about these things in a not really like complaining way, but talking about real life, like
Yeah.
normal life, not just all sunshine and roses. Um,
See, I like
and
that.
then,
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, and I felt like some people don't really want to talk about their life, and I kind of just do. Like, and it just came out naturally. Like I would, I shared this stir fry recipe once, and I decided I wanted to write about my sleep apnea. I have a sleep disorder called sleep apnea, where you stop breathing during your sleep.
Yeah.
And so I just like it was a 1,000 word essay about my whole sleep apnea. Like, and it was helpful to some people. So I didn't know if it was going to be helpful. It was just writing about something that I have to deal with and I talk about in my everyday life. I talk to my
Yeah.
friends about it all the time. So it was natural for me to write about it. And then last year, I decided to write about my childhood, which was like, and we've talked a little bit about my childhood before when you
Right.
interviewed me for your series.
Yes.
And I had no idea the amount of people would respond to it. Um,
Huh.
the emails that I got from people who had similar childhoods, and yeah, I had no idea. Like it opened this rush of feeling no longer feeling alone, but also at the same time realizing how important it is that blogging is still very important, or sharing firsthand experiences online is still so important.
Oh, I
Like it was one of those things where it was like, Oh my God, like when people say blogs are not, they're not 2016 anymore or whatever, like they're lying, because everyone wants to feel like, it was such a like huge example for me. Like I was feeling so alone and I put this out there and people made sure to tell me that they went through the same thing and I no longer felt alone. And
Oh,
that's exactly what it is. A lot of people don't want to feel alone. They
wow.
want to know that someone else has been through it and they're going to be okay, whether it's a sickness, an illness, or life experience or whatever. And it was one of those things where I was like, holy shit, like this
Yeah.
is still so important to people,
Julie,
to
that
so
is,
many people.
it's beautiful because I just feel like you're right. I feel like there's actually even pressure on bloggers nowadays to just churn out recipe after recipe and not to go into these personal stories. And yet I feel like what you're saying is, don't forget that. That's, I actually, more than just connecting with other bloggers, we need to connect with our audience like that.
Yeah, and I am going to get teary eyed talking about this
Uh,
because when I was sick this year, and I actually decided, when I started blogging again this year, I, I've shared a little bit about it on Facebook and I kind of mentioned it on my Facebook page. And then at one point I wrote an email to my email list and I said, hey, I'm kind of back and I was sick. And the amount of email replies I got back were like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were sick. Or
oh,
I saw that you said you were sick and I'm so glad you're better. I really look forward to your recipes.
oh,
I just couldn't believe the response I got from people. Like, if someone posted someone that I know, like I would be like, oh my God, I didn't know they were sick, or I feel so bad. And,
yeah.
sometimes you don't write an email back or whatever, but I don't think these people really realize how much they mean to me. Like,
Wow.
they don't know. And I try to tell them, but I think I need to keep telling them when I send out my weekly emails. But I just, you feel like for a long time I said, when I come back from blogging, or if I stop blogging for a month or a couple of weeks, I won't be that person that says, oh my gosh, I'm sure you missed me. I haven't been
Yeah.
blogging. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But in a way, like when I did come back with my emails, people were like, and even one of my friends said to me, she said to me in person last week when I saw her, she said, when your first email came back, like came through the little kitchen, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad she's back. Like she's feeling better. That means she's working again and she's feeling better. And
Oh,
she has no idea what that means to me. Like
oh,
when
yeah.
people make the connection and when you just reach out and say something to someone, you never know how much it's going to mean to them. Like I was literally throwing this beacon out, like into the ocean, like in a message in a bottle, literally, when I wrote about my childhood last October. I didn't know if anyone was going to listen, if anyone was going to come back and say anything, but I just wanted to throw something out there because I felt so alone at that moment.
Oh,
And people responded. And so, and they kept telling me how much it meant to them that I wrote that. And I was like, you're crazy. You don't know how much it means for me to hear from you. And
yeah.
so I feel like we need to keep connecting with other people. It's not about, it is the connection. It is about the relationships. And I know I'm going so far around and on tangents, but um, it's something that I really believe in after experiencing my blog, like, writing my blog for almost 6 years and realizing how much other people mean to me. And also the food bloggers that I've become friends with who are there for me, who let me vent and um, who help support me and I support them. So it's so many different relationships that we can build that are so vital to like our survival, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's so beautiful because I think it is true. I think sometimes the people who are drawn to food blogging can tend to be independent souls because they kind of want to do things and I notice a lot of control behavior amongst food bloggers and a lot of times that's an independent kind of person. But I think what I'm hearing you say is like the more we can learn to connect with other people, the happier we're going to be in what we're doing. And I think that's so important.
It is so important. I think it's vital. I think it's vital to our survival and our success.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, really, we're all here to, support one another. And I think, you said this earlier, that wherever we are, that's where we are, right? But, the more that if we have goals to move forward, the more we can connect with the people. Don't try to just like steamroll this and do it on your own. Try to find other people you can connect with. Now, do you have advice for people? Like, let's say someone's listening to this, or they have their food blog, they've been working on it for a while, but they have no idea how to connect with other people. Do you have tips for that?
Definitely. I feel like if there's a couple of food bloggers or a handful of food bloggers that you admire their work, you like their writing, you just feel a connection to them, I would say definitely send them an email or connect with them. Communicate with them via social media, comment on their blog, comment on their Instagrams, tweet them. Sometimes tweeting them is a little bit better, even though I'm so bad at Twitter right now. So if I don't respond, don't get upset. But I feel like connecting with someone that you respect, that inspires you, that motivates you, and share that with them, that like how much they inspire you. I think you never know what connection you can make by emailing. Because I give that example of now one of my best friends, Joanne, of if she had never emailed me asking for advice, would we be friends or as good of friends as we are? And you just never know when you throw something out there and you try to make a connection with someone, what it could lead to. And not doing it with any expectation. If they never write you back,
right,
don't take that personally. There's Facebook groups for food bloggers, conferences like Marley's conference that I'm hoping to go to this year. And I feel like meeting people in person is so important.
I think so too.
And finding local bloggers around you. For a while, I was organizing local meetups, and it gets really hard because everyone gets so busy. But I did it for about a year, and it was really nice because I know a lot of my local food blogger friends now. And a lot of times I'll try to reach out to them and say, hey, let's go get dinner or whatever. And when you get together, it's not always talking about food blogging. And that's the other thing that, like when you meet someone in the beginning, like at a mixer or at a networking event or at an event where you're invited by a brand or by a restaurant or whatever it is. Like if you just talk about business, sometimes it can get really boring. Like I feel like getting to know someone on a deeper level more than just what they're doing for their business. Like honestly and truthfully, when I meet someone, I just say, hi, I'm Julie. I'll say like, this is what I do and this is my blog and I have a dog named Charlie and my husband's name is Curtis. Like it's not like I feel like I am Julie. Like I am a food blogger, but that is not 100% me.
Right.
My marriage, my family, my life, all those things make up me, but not one thing is all me. You know what I mean? So I rarely introduce myself, even if it's at a blogging event, as Julie from the Little Kitchen, unless they say, let's go around the room and say your name and say your blog name. You know what I mean? Because that's not who I am. I mean, I guess I do that for a living, but that's not who I am.
That's so cool. I was just reading the book by Stephen Pressfield. Do you know who that is?
No.
He wrote the book, The War of Art. Yeah. And he talks about, he talks a lot about resistance and the things that cause us to resist our art. And he talks on this list of how to overcome resistance is to become a pro. And one of the things is to not over resonate with what you're doing. That way you have some distance between the work that you're doing and who you are. So I think that's what I hear out of what you're saying, which is perfect.
I love that. And I feel like that kind of goes along with don't leave your own press all the time. I feel like some people are really super arrogant and have huge egos and they only listen to the good things that everyone says about them. And I feel like you lose touch with everybody around you, not just the people that read your site, but everyone around you. And no one wants to be around you if you think that,
yes,
your shit doesn't stink or anything like that.
I love that.
I wonder if you should even publish any of this. I'm going crazy here.
I love it all. Are you kidding? Okay, so we're headed here towards the end of the interview, and I just wanted to ask you. I have some fun questions I like to ask at the end of each interview. So, okay, what's one
Oh,
food
sure.
item you can't live without?
Oh gosh. Oh my gosh. And I'm speaking to a vegan person. I'm very sorry, but it's
Okay.
butter. I can't
Oh,
live
that's all
without
right.
butter.
That's butter is it's doable. So, okay, so what do you just like eat it off the stick, or what do you do with butter?
Oh my gosh. Well, butter goes into everything. Like I love brown butter. I love cooking and baking with butter. Um, it's funny because a company came out with this T-shirt, and I keep saying I'm going to buy it, but it's like flour, sugar, eggs, and butter. And
Oh,
so to say that I can only live without one thing, like it's kind of like all those things. Like I'm a carboholic.
I still remember your brown butter. You made a brown butter chocolate chip cookie recipe. It was all over Pinterest for a while. It's beautiful.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
Do you remember that recipe?
Yeah, and there's a brown butter funfetti cookie recipe too that I love. But yeah, I love baking with brown butter and cooking with brown butter.
That's good. Okay.
I wanted can you vegan butter or no?
Yeah, there is Earth Balance creates what we call it vegan butter. So yeah,
I bet you could brown it and make
I
it toasty.
you know what? I should probably give that a try. I think I've tried chocolate chips and chocolate chip cookies in every other variation, but I haven't probably tried that. So I should just get your recipe out and see if I can veganize it.
Yeah, you
Ooh,
totally should.
I
I think
haven't.
you have veganized a couple of my recipes. Yeah, I love that when you do that.
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. I think I linked to you. I don't remember what it was now, but
I don't remember
I
what it was
remember
either,
it
but I
was.
remember a couple of times. Yeah.
Yes, it was a sandwich that had cheese on it. I don't remember what the rest of it was.
Oh, was it the avocado tofu sandwich that I did? And I think it had cheese. Yeah.
Maybe it was something like that, yeah. But yeah, I remember
Yeah.
seeing the sandwich that you had, and I thought, oh my God, I have to have a vegan version of that, and it was really good. Okay, so what's the favorite app on your phone?
Oh, I have a favorite one right now. It's called Dark Sky.
I have that
It's a
app.
weather app. Isn't
It
it great? It
is.
alerts you when it's about to start raining. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of the wrong one. I'm thinking I have an app that like tells me what all the constellations are.
Oh, no, this one's about weather. It's all about weather,
Oh.
and you could turn on the alerts, and it was so helpful because last year I had to do some photo shoots for a client outside, and it rains a lot in the summer in Florida, and it would tell me by the hour when the rain was going to come, and then
Oh.
it would send me this alert, and it would say 15 minutes, rain starting, and I would bring everything in, and it would be downpour.
Oh.
It was amazing.
But they
It's
only last for a
awesome.
few minutes
Yeah.
in Florida, right?
It does, and lately, for some reason, they've been lasting for like 90 minutes. It's kind
Oh
of
my God.
annoying. Usually it lasts for like 20 minutes and it's gone, but our first storms have been crazy this year. But it's a great app.
Oh, that sounds like a great app for food photographers because it's
Yeah,
really hard to
it's
shoot when there's a storm
yeah.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and it tells you when the sun is about to set, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
it's great.
cool. I always feel like that's the really challenging part about food photography is like even if you figure things out, if you had a perfect light source all the time, it would be one thing, but the light's changing from season to season and from hour to hour, and I think that makes it kind of
Hmm.
challenging sometimes.
Yeah, and even minute by minute here when we're cloudy, it's
Yes.
like I,
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, I'm waiting for that cloud to move back because I like it better when I
Yeah.
have that light instead of the bright,
Yeah.
sunshiny light. So, yeah, totally.
Okay, so do you have any time for TV at all? And if you do you have a favorite show?
Oh, gosh. Somehow I find the time to squeeze in way too much TV. Sometimes I stay up late. Um, well, oh, you know what? I started watching The Bachelorette. I'm covering my eyes in shame right now. I don't know. There's something about watching that show and like going, I can't believe people put all this out there. Like more
Yes.
than what I write about. It's like putting their whole relationship and like, wanting to get
Yes.
married out there. It's like I can't stop watching.
Like
It's
it's
like
almost
once I started watching this year.
like an ambulance driving by or something, like you just can't not watch it
I
or something.
know.
Yeah.
I know. And I really love Real Housewives of New York City. And I stopped watching it when Bethany left, but then when Bethany Frankel came back, I started watching it again, and I love it. Love it. Yeah, I watch a lot of bad TV.
They showed a clip of The Bachelorette. I think it was on The Tonight Show with Colbert. And there was like this scene with a horse in the field, and the couple, they were like, I don't know, like slightly making out over this horse that was laying down. It was just the strangest thing I've ever seen. Did you see that one?
Yes, I think I saw that. I think I saw it.
It was, I think they were in Argentina.
They were like,
yeah.
Yes, they were in South America, and there was a guy, what is it? What did he say?
Gaucho. Yeah.
Trying to think of this. Yeah, Gaucho.
Uh-huh.
And he was actually stretching the horse. It was like he was doing horse yoga.
Yes.
And he was massaging it. And they were talking about how, if you watch the episode, they're talking about how, like, the Gauchos are really in tune with the horses.
Uh-huh.
And, like, it was amazing to watch this guy massage this horse and, like, stretch its leg. Like he was doing yoga for it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting.
Yes.
So I did learn something from that show. It was...
See, you like to learn from everything.
Exactly. We were talking about, like, learning stuff, right? Like, yes. I learned something while I was watching The Bachelorette.
That's great. Okay, so how can people find you online?
My food blog, The Little Kitchen, is at thelittlekitchen.net. And I'm on Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest at The Little Kitchen. If you spell it THELITTLE, KITCH, no E in kitchen. And I also have another blog that I write at called juliedeily.com.
I did not know about that one. I'll have to check that one out. And what do you share at juliedeily.com?
I write about blogging and social media there.
Nice. Oh, great. I can't wait to check that out. Julie, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marley.
Thanks so much to Julie Deily for being my guest on today's episode of the Chopped Podcast. Be sure to go to choppedpodcast.com to buy your ticket to the Chopped Conference, learn more about today's show, and you can also sign up for our newsletter to get the latest on all things food blogging. Tune in next week as I talk to Bree Hester of the site Baked Bree about how to connect with your email list. It's one thing to grow your list, it's quite another to stay in touch, and Bree shares some tips on her very popular newsletter. So be sure to tune in next week. I hope you're loving the Chop Podcast. You can show your support for this show by leaving a review on iTunes or Stitcher. You can also share about the show on social media, or you can leave a link on your own blog or podcast. All of these are very helpful. And you know, I love getting your emails, so keep them coming. You inspire me, and I hope today's show was helpful and inspirational to the work you're doing every day. Thanks for listening, and have a great week.